You're watching Grumpy Opinions. Outlander is the show in its 7th season, telling the story of time-travelling clans Fraser and Mackenzie, and the many adventures and hijinks, and honestly, if you're watching this, then I think you know what this show is about. Episode 703, Death Be Not Proud, starts actually before the last episode ended, showing us that Windowline doorframe didn't just blow up, he fainted because of the ether fumes along with his boys, which gave the home team time to run away from the explosion, and then the rest of the Ridge arrives to help with the fire, but as it's a losing battle, Jamie tells them all to just give up. And the next day, they're in and about all the ruins feeling sad and finding bits and bobs of stuff, and Jamie has words with old man Archbug because he's found a little bit of gold, and it turns out that that was actually gold taken from Jocasta's hubby, which they used for themselves, even though it was originally for Bonnie Prince Charlie and for the Jacobite cause. And Jamie points out that stealing from a thief makes you just as much of a thief, and then he kicks Bug off the land. And then later that night, Jamie and Ian wait out to see where the Bugs have hidden the gold so they can steal it themselves, and they surprise old man Bug, and Ian does another murder arrow only to find out that it was actually Mrs. Bug in disguise for some reason. So off they go and bury her, and as you'd expect, her husband turns up, and he's quite sad. And then afterwards, Ian offers his knife and says, you can end me as a penance, and Bug's like, no, how about just end your wolf instead? And of course Ian's like, no, doggo. So Bug swears, well then, I'll return because, of course he will. And after that, the House of Fraser decides it's time to jog off home to Scotland, so they hide the gold in a cave that only Jamie and Jemmy knew about, and they leave a Back to the Future style package in trust, to be sent to Bree and Roger in the future, which they eventually get, and they figure out what it's all about. Then they visit the old family home of Lallybroch, which by lucky chance is for sale. I wonder where they're going to get the money. Oh, and when Jamie and Claire are on the way out of the town, they find Adso, and Claire hugs him and then lets him go. Okay, fair enough. End of episode. So what did I think? Well, this was another one of those kind of get stuff out the way episodes, which started out intriguingly with the box of letters from the past, and part of me kind of wishes they'd actually started the season using this as a framing device, much like they did with Season 2, starting in the future and jumping back. But yeah, it was also nice to see What's-Her-Face again, and I hear that they're back off to Boston, and to be honest, I'd quite forgotten that's where they used to live, so I'm not sure how Roger's going to get his job back though after 5 years away, but we'll see what happens with that. And it's also nice to get some actual acting all round from the cast, everyone doing emotions, although I do feel like actually taking time to show the characters talking about how things are going rather than speed cutting from the house burning down to the murder to the funeral to the going back to Scotland. Jamie and Claire have not only lost their home, but most of their personal possessions. That means they must have lost letters, guns, money, food supplies, and all that gets a little bit glossed over. Probably because it doesn't move along, the gold in the Bug story. And that kind of bugged me a little bit. And I really wanted to have more happy thoughts about this episode, but try as I might, I really just can't get that emotionally invested in Claire and Jamie standing around looking at props burning and sets going kaboom and saying, oh no, our clothes have a sooty smell, better wash them. It's fair enough. If you want to have us feel bad for them losing the homestead, I kind of feel like we should have had a few episodes in the homestead playing up how important it is. Because, the big house, they haven't really been in it that much recently. Yes, last week there was a few bits, but last week was so distracted with everything about the sick baby and the 2 different road trips they went on. And the episodes before that have all been road trips to Wilmington and stuff, and like Claire being accused of being a witch and everything. So that's kind of the problem that plagues the show at the minute. The appearance of things without any depth. It's a surface level facile nature of the way the story's being told, and a lot of what is getting in the show, and it seems to be increasingly making the fans happy, is what I would think of as key jangling. Now, key jangling is a fairly unflattering term for something that distracts a dog or a baby because you just jangle it and they go, oh look, shiny. Now, it's the same problem that we've been getting with Star Wars, with Marvel, and even the Indiana Jones film that just came out. It's the give fans something that they recognise so that they can do the Leonardo DiCaprio point, and then lashing the rest of it together, however ugly and clunky and stulted it is, and rushing it through. Now, I get it. A lot of folks who really enjoy the show, and maybe that's you, and maybe seeing the moments that you remember from the book is your catnip. But I watched this from the start to see a story being told, and the story seems to have been a bit lost, and unless the writing starts picking up in serious quality, then Season 7 proper, and the upcoming Season 8, and Blood of My Blood, if they ever end up making that, aren't looking particularly good. And onto issues that I actually thought were practical issues. there's some bad special effects again. I mean, first off, actually I will say, I was impressed by the house burning. I mean, that seemed to be practical. I couldn't tell if it was real or if it was fake at points. And, the show has good form for that because they did stuff like that with Jamie's print shot back in the day, so I'm pleased to say that they caught the real sense of it being a fire. Although, I will say, the explosion looked kind of crap, and I never really got a sense of the danger of the heat of the fire. Because, I mean, the thing is, fires are dangerous and they're hot, and this felt more like a bunch of actors standing by going, "Oh, quick, throw a bucket of water at the set." It didn't feel real to me, it didn't feel frantic enough. Also, I mean, the fact is, whether they're bad robbers or not, there's 3 guys in there who are dead, who are burning to death, and nobody actually seems to care particularly. It never even really gets brought up again. And the doozy of this episode, in terms of special effects, was that attic in the barn shot. Now, I don't know if it was just blue screening or something, because Jamie and Claire and the dead body just look weird in that shot. I presume they just did a shot of the barn, and then they went back and they used a different shot of them and they put them together, but it just looked bad compared to the other shots in the attic, which look real. But also, because I was thinking about that, I started wondering about the logistics of, they must have had to have carried the body up there and then carried the coffin up there, and they're going to have to carry the coffin with the body in it back down out of the loft again, and that could be quite awkward. I didn't see a crane or a pulley system or something, but hey, it just seemed a bit overcomplicated. But, you do what you might have to do. The house is just burned down. And speaking of Mrs. Bug, why was she wearing her husband's clothes? It didn't really seem to be a cold night, considering how Jamie was dressed. I'm not sure why she would want to wear a great big hefty coat and a silly hat if she was out doing arduous digging in the back garden. And it felt kind of a cheap way to get Ian to kill her and to feel bad about it later. Also, why didn't she have her own coat? I mean, I'm assuming the bugs had their own stuff. It wasn't all burnt up in the house fire, because I didn't think they actually lived in the house. That wasn't clear if that's the case. And if they did live in the house and all their stuff's been burnt, then that's kind of crap of Jamie to literally turf a pair of homeless old duffers away after years and years of servitude, just because they stole some stolen gold back and hadn't been spending it on anything. And he plans to steal it right back off them again. I mean, I'm not kidding. Jamie wants to steal that gold, and he's plainly got no intention of using it for any sensible purpose. And it's gold that his aunt stole. So does he feel entitled to it? I mean, it's weird. I don't get the morality here. I mean, because Jamie and Claire, they melt some of it down and they obviously keep it, and then some of it they leave hidden for Bree and Roger. I just can't understand how they're supposed to have the moral high ground here. And it's clearly just a set-up to have another angry local vengeance quest, because why bother with, complex plots when we can just have some angry white bloke in a hat who's out hell-bent on vengeance of some kind? Again, I mean, we haven't seen that in every season of the show, usually. Also, talking about Bree and Roger, after they find the box full of stuff, that was kind of strange, because they read the letter and then they go through this discussion where they work out where the gold came from, the fact that it is gold, and that scene is so clunky, so arduously slow and basic. There's no logical flow to the way they work things out. They just kind of state things. But also, they've now decided that time travel works, because you can now change the past, they think. And is that the case? Because, I mean, we're 7 seasons into a show which has always had the idea going that time is unchangeable and it's a giant loop. But now they're saying that it isn't. Either that or the show is now ham-fistedly trying to get the audience to think that it isn't, so it can go, ha-ha-ha, and then next week they'll turn around and go, actually, no, it is. And in fact, I'm betting that is going to be part of the upcoming plot. Now, there's going to be some palaver that leads to Jamie and Claire faking their deaths and sending the letter that, was sent before, or printing it or whatever, because there was some reason for it, because otherwise we've got a great big time paradox on this show. But also, what was with the idea that Roger and Bree are going to read the letters slowly? I mean, maybe I'm being daft, but they just got told that there's a potential huge pot of gold going a-begging, and they literally can both time travel. So why are they assuming, A, that they're never going to see Jamie and Claire again, or why they're never going to go back in time again? Because literally, they could plot out when and where they're going to be using the letters to understand their movements across oldie America, and they could just pop back and see them in a few years when the kids are older. I mean, that's not a problem. The show only wants to present it as a problem and make us act like, oh no, they're obviously never going back. True, gems might be scarce, although to be honest, I'm pretty sure if you live in the 70s in America and you have a whole bunch of gold, there's not really going to be that difficult picking up a few little gems here and there. There's only really geography stopping them. So, I mean, if I was Bree and Roger, I'd be on the next plane home to Boston via North Carolina, picking up that gold, and after that, buying up all the land where maybe the Virginia stones were, or the Ocracoke stones were, because once you have that stone circle, you can go wherever you want in time. And why wouldn't they? They can do this the rest of their lives, and so can their kids. Why would you turn down that possibility, especially if you're someone like Roger, who is literally a historian? And just as a final point, the cat. The moment when they said Adzo was probably dead and they couldn't find it, I thought that's a shame. But then I remembered that I'd seen a screenshot of Claire cuddling the wee shite on the Outlander Instagram account the literal day the episode dropped. Great job there with the marketing of literally giving away something that happens in the last 2 episodes of the show on the same day that it dropped. You know, just in case anybody might not have seen the episode the second it dropped online. In fact, I've got to be honest, the marketing this season has just been vomit-inducing, is from my point of view, because every post is like, oh my god, we die every time Jamie and Claire do something, every time they sit down or stand up, my heart does a loop-de-loop. It's like, it's just sickening, and it's clearly written by somebody who doesn't actually think that. It's nonsense. Don't believe it. It's marketing.
By the way, if anyone here is in advertising or marketing, yourself. No, really. There's no rationalization for what you do, and you are Satan's little helpers, okay? Yourself, seriously. There's no fucking joke coming. You are Satan's spawn, filling the world with bile and garbage. You are fucked, and you are fucking us. I know all the marketing people are going, he's doing a joke. There's no joke here whatsoever.
And so in summary, it's mostly the same issues as last week. Time wasting, cramming events together in a way that feels bitty and messy, rather than telling a compelling story. We're in supercut land where the show's hammering together events so that it can move along things far too fast. And yeah, I feel kind of the same place as I did last week, where I wish the story would decide on a course and stick to it and tell, like, a compelling story. And I've been saying that the whole back half of this season, or indeed, well, the back half of last season, and the first half of this season. And again, as we've said, this should be Season 6, Episode 11, not Season 7, Episode 3, so maybe this is leftover scripts from then, and by rights, this ought to have had a bit more of a winding down feeling before a finale next week that'll probably leave it on a cliffhanger. Yeah, I expect something will happen next week and it should be more interesting, but I'm going to say I don't think they're going to make it to Scotland next week. More likely that'll be saved for some what would have been Season 7, Episode 1 in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, anyway, rather than belabour anything any further, let's just say, not loving this season so far, not hating it, but we've come a long way from the high points of Seasons 1, 2 and 3. So, scrappy and messy. That's my feelings. But until next time, these have been my grumpy opinions.